Welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast, where we invite you to spend just a few minutes with staff at Cook Library. My name is Hannah Dove. I'm one of the Readers Advisors here at Cook Memorial Public Library, and I am here with a very special guest. I'm here to introduce Allie, our newest member of Adult Services. Allie, what is your position here at Cook Memorial Public Library?
So I'm an information services librarian, and the fun thing about my position is that I really get to wear a lot of different hats. I work reference, I do one-on-one resume building sessions with patrons who are interested. I'm going to get to lead the nonfiction book club. I'm going to be leading some craft programs, and then occasionally I'm going to be running some sort of business and career-oriented programs as well, in addition to working on collections and things like that.
So what are the collections that you manage? Because it does seem that you have a lot of hats in business and crafting and all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with the 600s and 700s, which is a lot of cookbooks, which are a lot of fun to look through, and craft and fine art books. I don't have all of the fine art sections exactly. Decent amount. I have books that are about decor and decluttering your home and making things look nice. I also have kinds of parenting, cleaning, domestic books. And then recently I acquired the 100s, which are more focused on psychology and philosophy.
A crafting book that I am very excited to get my hands on is The Art of Memory Collecting, 15 scrapbook, collage, trinket, and zine projects for crafting treasured moments by Martina Calvi. Comes out October 29th, 2024, and it is a collection of projects by quote-unquote memory collector Martina, who shares techniques and inspiration to show how fun and simple collaging and scrapbook can be. I am very excited. We will have a copy in our catalog, to be sure, featuring trinket tins, floral bookmarks, travel zines, all sorts of fun projects, especially if you don't like going out in the fall or in the winter, you want to stay in and be cozy. This is a great way to do it. So are these necessarily books that you'd read on a day-to-day basis, or do you have a different genre that you prefer?
Yeah, so I do think it's a lot of fun to buy for craft and fine art. I had worked at a previous library when I was at U of I in graduate school. I worked in their art and architecture library. So I have a background ordering some of those fine art books and things like that. So I kind of know what to look for. I think they're really fun.
I just love flipping through art books, especially oversized art books, because they're just great to look at. They're essentially picture books for adults, and I appreciate that. Not every book has to have tiny, tiny text and no pictures and is also 1,000 pages.
Absolutely. And it can be relaxing, like you were saying, and I think these books offer a different way to grow. It's giving you the ability to acquire other skills as well. With the crafting, and whether you're into crocheting or painting, I'm hoping to get some jewelry making books in there soon, or the cookbooks. You want to try funky recipes. You don't want to buy the whole book, especially if you're trying a different kind of cuisine or diet. Having that in the library is a great thing to have. I also really love ordering the cookbooks because I do like to cook, and it's just fun to look through the glossy pages, see what different kinds of chefs and cooks out there and bakers are coming up with.
I use so many cookbooks from the library. I just returned Molly Baz's More is More, which came out in October of last year. Highly recommended. A lot of fun recipes in there.
But I would say that I probably more so gravitate towards fiction. I read a variety of genres. I'll read some literary fiction, contemporary, magical realism. And within those stories, as long as there's a little bit of magic or something strange going on, it's really going to capture my interest. And horror as well, I should say. I really love horror.
Were you a library kid growing up? Did you imagine yourself being here when you were older, or did you have something completely different in mind?
Yeah, so for some reason I didn't connect the dots about being a librarian until I was a couple years out of undergrad. But of course, I did always love to read. I loved my local library. I enjoyed the quiet, peaceful atmosphere and the ability to kind of just look at whatever piqued my curiosity, and being able to do so, it felt kind of a little bit magical to me. So
Definitely.
yeah, so I always loved that. And I knew that I wanted to work in a more educational role. I was an English major in undergrad, and I wanted to be able to do education in a way that the people I was working with kind of got to shape more so what they were interested in learning, how they wanted to learn it. So eventually that brought me to librarianship, because I really like that a patron can come in, say what they're looking for, or pick a program that they're interested in, ask for recommendations, and the patrons really get to be the ones that are in charge, and we sort of facilitate that education or growth or whatever they're interested in.
Absolutely. So, what would you say your favorite book of all time would be?
So unfortunately, I can't answer that question because I have enjoyed so many different books at different points in my life. When I was younger, I was really into the Harry Potter series. And when I would say high school, the book that struck me the most, that kind of had the biggest impact, was The Trial by Kafka, which is a classic, but is also definitely kind of bizarre.
Yep.
And after that, I mean, I was reading so much in undergrad due to my major, and since then in adulthood, picking all these different books, that it's really hard to pick something. I've liked a lot of different titles over the years. I will say that I just finished a book that I really enjoyed that we have here called Prophet.
Prophet.
Yeah, and it's by, and forgive me if I'm saying the names incorrectly, I tried to find how to pronounce it online, and I was unsuccessful. So the Prophet is by Sin Blaché and Helen MacDonald, and it is that kind of genre-defying book. I would say it's mainly couched in sci-fi, but it has elements of horror and some romance as well. Really, what it's about is there are two men. One is a sort of buttoned-up CIA officer, and the other is a former MI6 operative who is in pretty rough shape. He's dealt with addiction issues, and he is currently, at the beginning of the book, just released from a prison in another country, and they're brought together by their respective governments to inspect a diner that appeared out of nowhere in a rural English really field. And there's something very uncanny about it. They're not sure what's wrong with it exactly. It's very weird. And so they're brought in to kind of figure out what that is, what it's about, and it's a commentary a little bit, I think, on the military and society. Also great, it has a lot of great character development to see how the characters grow. One is more serious, the other is more playful, and he can be kind of mean. He also has they both have actually special abilities. One is just very good with weapons and fighting, and the other has the uncanny ability to detect whether something is true or a lie.
Oh, wow.
So it's really fascinating. Also to see the story develop, a little romance emerges that really colors the story and enriches it without taking away the plot. So I definitely recommend that one.
Wow, that's great, Reader's Advisor. You're giving me a run for my money.
Thank you.
So you prefer genre-defying. You mentioned horror, kind of more literary stuff. What is a genre that you don't really read that often?
Fair. I would say that I don't usually, and I don't mean to offend, of course, I don't usually read romance. I enjoy romance as sort of a flavor in another kind of genre, whether it's literary or fantasy, etc. But I'm not as interested in it as the main story. And so it's very rare for me to pick up a romance novel.
I think that's fair, especially for people who kind of have, like, an idea of what romance is, and I am very similar. I love genre-defying books. That's why I loved Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I rave about this book all the time, but especially now that the leaves are finally changing and the temperature has dropped below 80 degrees. It is essentially a romance that takes place in 1840s Mexico, kind of on the border with the United States. A historical romance with vampires, or monsters that could be considered vampires. And I am a horror book lover through and through. My coworkers, my friends can all attest to that. Essentially, it goes girl and boy meet as children, kind of fall in love. Girl gets attacked by something.
Oh, no.
Boy thinks she's dead and goes off, mourning her in the process. She's not dead, and when he comes back, she's mad. And then they have to fight the encroaching Americans on their large ranch territory, while also dealing with vampires and things that go bump in the night. It's a sweet romance, but also it's woven so nicely into the world building, into a part of history that I don't honestly know much about. And Isabel Cañas is also just perfect with doing that. She also wrote The Hacienda, which is a gothic horror novel.
Yeah, I love those.
I love gothic horror books, and there's a ton of them that have been coming out this year that I've just been going through and going through. When it gets colder, you have a couple options. You could go cozy mystery, cozy romantasy, gothic horror.
Right.
Or regular horror, if that's your thing. I know that Mark and Mary and Lindsay, in fact, many of our coworkers loved Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I have yet to read it, but it's in my cart. It's awaiting my unfrozen hold, shall I say. But now we need to get into the meat and potatoes of you as a reader. Are you a hardcover fan or are you a paperback fan?
So I'll say that I gravitate towards the hardcover.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it's easier to read from generally. It's easier to prop up and hold open. Mm-hmm. So there's that. It feels more durable.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not going to lie is a good strength. If I'm bringing books around different places, it's good to have the more durable aspect. I won't say no to paperback.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have the option, I'll generally choose hardback. Paperback's great for if you're on a flight or a long trip, something like that. But preference is definitely hardcover.
All right, physical book or ebook?
Nice. So this even more strongly than hardback versus paperback. I definitely prefer physical. I like to be able to hold the book. I work with screens and computers a lot, so I like having my eyes look at something else. That is not to say that I don't read ebooks. I definitely do. If there's something I'm really excited about and I can't get it in a physical form, I'm going to read it as an ebook. Or if I'm really obsessed with something and I want to be able to read it everywhere, I have a physical copy and I'm somewhere else and I want to be able to read it, maybe on my phone or on a computer somewhere else, then I'll also get the ebook so I can kind of be... And I've told other patrons that they're welcome to do that. Mm-hmm. We do not get upset.
Yes.
If you have it out in different versions. So ebook is usually more of a last resort or if I'm really, really excited about something.
Are you an audiobook fan?
So I actually, and this kind of goes back to your question about other places I've worked that I didn't quite cover. Mm-hmm. I worked previously at another public library, and for that library, one of the collections I had was audiobooks. Mm-hmm. And specifically audiobooks on CD. And I hadn't really listened to audiobooks before then, but because I was taking the collection on, I really wanted to have a better grasp of the experience. And especially because I had long commutes and I still do have long commutes, I've really fallen in love with the format. Mm-hmm. I think if you have a talented voice artist or performer on an audiobook, it can really enrich the experience. I really liked, this is a little bit of an older title, but All's Well by Mona Awad, which is a magical realism story about a theater professor who has chronic pain and is trying to hold on to her position, leading, I believe it's a college theater class. And some of them are kind of trying to push back against her teaching method. And the voice actor, who I'm afraid I don't remember the name of, unfortunately, really brings the different tones of the book to life. So it feels, she really makes you feel both sympathy for the character. Sometimes the way that she narrates, it makes you kind of laugh at the narrator and kind of the drama of it. It has a lot of drama in the story, and as well as creating moments of tension. I think that good audiobooks are good at kind of creating that world. I love them, again, for my commutes because I drive, and it's just a great way to get to quote-unquote read or to enjoy a story when you have... It's a good way to get reading done, especially if you're busy, and if you're like me, you're in a car or you're sitting on a train or something, it helps the time pass, you get to read, and you're not really cutting out a different chunk of your day.
Absolutely. And I just listened to this audiobook of a new book called Whale Fall by Elizabeth O'Connor. And essentially, it's 1938 on this remote Welsh island, and a dead whale rolls up onto shore, and everyone is asking if this is like a sign of something, a bad omen. And we follow this 18-year-old named Manon. She wants to get off this island. 60 people on the island, and she wants to be free. Go to the mainland, go anywhere else. And then 2 British ethnographers show up in order to kind of investigate, quote unquote, the goings-on of these quaint islanders. And Manon gets wrapped up in them. And you meet all these characters, and in between there's interspersed cuts of recordings from different islanders with their different voices. There's singing, there's clips of mythology and folk tales that their grandparents told them when they were still alive. And it's a very short audiobook, 4 hours. I listened to it all the way through.
Nice.
I was entranced by it. And that's how you know an audiobook is good, where you forgo any other human contact. You have your headphones in, you're just like, I need to see what happens. I need to hear these voices.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Just came out this year. Whale Fall was published in May 7th, a couple months back. I don't want to do that math. It's too scary to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fun format, and I definitely encourage anyone who hasn't given it a shot before to do so. You can get we have the CD form here, and we also have e-audio. So if you've ever used Libby's my preferred e-library. And so that's one example. They have a lot of audiobooks on there as well. And yeah, just try something new. And it can really bring a picture together. If you're struggling to find time to read, you can put an audiobook, e or otherwise audiobook on while you're cooking, while you're cleaning. So you can also get more opportunities to read as well.
Right now, in Libby, I'm listening to The Mesmerist by Caroline Woods, and it takes place in 1894 Minneapolis. Financial crisis is going on. Spiritualism is hot on its heels. Women are dying under mysterious circumstances, and it takes place in the Bethany Home for Unwed Mothers, which is run by Abby, a staunch Quaker. And this woman who has selective mutism, who gets named Faith, she doesn't reveal her name, starts her stint at the home, and everyone thinks that she's a mesmerist, a witch, practicer of the occult. And in the meantime, Faith's roommate May is trying to seduce a young man named Hal in order to secure her financial freedom, her security. It moves in between the three of them. I find myself switching to Wikipedia to look things up. Of course, it's probably spoiling the book for myself, but I'm like, is this a real location? Like,
oh, I love that. Yeah. I do that as well. I mean, that book in itself sounds like something that I would also really enjoy.
Oh, yeah. It's true crime, but fiction. But also based on a true story. It's very fun.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I also like to look things up while I'm reading. I actually find that this is getting into full nerd territory now. But if I'm reading, it's never been easier for me if there's a word that I'm not familiar with or a moment in time, kind of like you were talking about, to just go onto the internet quickly, especially if I'm in ebook mode. But even if I'm not, like look it up on my phone or... I like the utility of words. Again, it's a good choice for my profession.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that language is... the more language you know, the more you can express yourself and I think get a greater grasp of concepts. And so if I'm reading and there's vocabulary I'm not familiar with, I'm usually on it unless I'm feeling a little lazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah, you learn a new word and then... I don't know. This is the nerdiness coming back, but it just feels like you've unlocked something.
If you were curious about any of the titles mentioned on this episode, make sure you go online to www.cooklib.org and place a hold for yourself. While you're on our website, make sure that you take a look at our blog, where we regularly share what's new and interesting in books, movies, music, and library events. If you ever want to get in touch and leave some feedback, send a message to us at webmaster@cooklib.org. If you enjoy this podcast, share it with your friends. And one of the best things you can do to support us is take a moment to leave a rating or comment on wherever you listen to podcasts. Those ratings and comments help get this podcast noticed. We'll be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.